This is Little Boy, the atomic bomb that devastated Hiroshima. This is the H-bomb Castle Bravo, the most powerful nuclear weapon the United States has ever detonated. And this is RDS-220, also known as Tsar Bomba, the emperor of all bombs. It was built in the Soviet Union, and here it was called Big Ivan. Russia recently declassified secret footage of its 1961 detonation. At 50 megatons, Tsar Bomba is the largest nuclear weapon ever detonated. It yielded the most powerful human-made explosion in history, about 3,800 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. If dropped over a major city, the consequences would be unimaginable. And if it weren't for a last-minute decision, it would have been twice as powerful, and perhaps twice as catastrophic. The lead physicist who engineered it was so unsettled by his creation that he devoted the rest of his life to campaigning against the nuclear arms race. This is the surprisingly unknown, terrifying story of Tsar Bomba. It's the end of the 50s. The Soviets and the Americans are neck and neck in the nuclear arms race, but the Americans are winning, and Nikita Khrushchev, leader of the Soviet Union, knows it. Tensions between the two superpowers have cooled down a bit in recent years. Khrushchev and US President Eisenhower have recently met, and both expressed a desire for more harmony. In 1958, they both agreed to a voluntary test ban moratorium on nuclear weapons. Worldwide, many are hopeful that a peaceful coexistence is on the horizon. In May of 1960, the Soviet Union and the United States are scheduled to meet in Paris for a summit. One of the main points on the agenda is disarmament. They hope to formalize a test ban treaty of nuclear weapons. Both leaders, and the world at large, are well aware of how existentially dangerous nuclear warfare is. But just a few days before the summit, it all goes south. Tensions bubble to a rolling boil when an American spy plane is shot down from deep within Soviet territory. The Americans claim that it was just a weather plane that's been blown off course, but the Soviets are able to present evidence that the plane was indeed used for espionage. The captured pilot admits he works for the CIA. The Americans' lie turns into a PR disaster for the Eisenhower administration. Khrushchev opens the Paris summit with an enraged rebuke of the United States. He demands an apology from Eisenhower. The US president refuses, and Khrushchev storms out. No treaty is signed. Khrushchev thinks he needs to show the world how tough and formidable the Soviet Union is. He's famously prickly, impulsive, and aggressive. A few years ago, he told Western powers, "History is on our side. We will bury you." Now is the time to put his money where his mouth is. Because of the temporary ban on testing, innovation efforts on both sides of the arms race have slowed. They're both focused on steadily growing their supply, building more bombs instead of developing new tech. Not all breakthroughs have to be destructive. Sometimes technology is being developed to help us, like Odoo's all-in-one platform, giving you everything you need to manage your own business. For example, Odoo offers a great website builder app. No tech skills? Don't worry, you won't need any. Simply follow these 4 steps. What type of website do you need? What colors match your style? Which pages or features should it have? What overall design do you prefer? Odoo takes care of the rest. You can fine-tune everything afterwards. You can drag text boxes wherever you need them. ChatGPT is built right in as well to help you write engaging copy. It can also handle translations if you want your site to be multilingual. You'll be online in no time. Odoo's first app is free for life with unlimited hosting and support. They even give you a free custom domain name for 1 year on top. If you're ready to dive deeper, Odoo offers a range of other powerful applications to optimize your business. Scan this QR code or visit fern.deal/Odoo25 and start building your own website for free. In 1961, the Americans inaugurate John F. Kennedy as their new president. Khrushchev has no respect for him. He sees him as young, inexperienced, and weak. This might be the perfect moment to show the world what the Soviet Union is capable of. So he summons scientists from Artemis-16, the Soviet Los Alamos, to the Kremlin. He tells them it's time to break the test ban moratorium and start testing nukes again. One of these scientists is Andrei Sakharov. He's a star physicist for the Soviet effort. He led the creation of a staged thermonuclear weapon, independently of any intelligence gathered from the Americans. He's called the father of the Soviet hydrogen bomb. But Sakharov has become uneasy with his role in the arms race. He's found that even testing the weapons is catastrophically lethal, even if no human is within the blast radius. He has calculated that for every megaton of nuclear weapons detonated, there would be over 6,600 premature deaths worldwide due to the cancers and genetic abnormalities produced by the radioactivity. Even if these deaths occur very gradually, over thousands of years, his conscience still can't take it. So he tells Khrushchev that it's unnecessary to test anymore. Isn't it enough to have built the bombs and only use them in an absolute last resort scenario? They already know their tech is good. Khrushchev is furious. Sakharov, don't try to tell us what to do or how to behave. We understand politics. I'd be a jellyfish and not chairman of the Council of Ministers if I listened to people like Sakharov. Khrushchev demands that the scientists make suggestions. What kind of bombs should they develop? There's not a lot of new ideas ready to be tested due to the recent focus on stockpiling over innovating. So someone simply suggests going bigger. Why not 100 megatons? Khrushchev loves the idea and latches onto it. 100 megatons is an absurdly high number. Up until that point, the most powerful bomb ever detonated was Castle Bravo, a 15 megaton bomb the Americans tested in 1954. The total blast power expended in all of World War II is 3 megatons, and that includes the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Previous plans to test bombs in this megaton range had been halted because the effects of such a large weapon were unknowable. Scientists weren't able to reliably predict meteorological conditions at the time, which would affect the severity of the radioactive fallout and how far the particles could travel. For all they know, such an enormous blast could engulf Moscow in a cloud of poisonous radiation. What could even be gained from testing 100 megatons? For Khrushchev, it's obvious. The Soviet Union would assert its dominance. Let the 100 megaton bomb hang over the capitalists like a sword of Damocles. And so the race to build the biggest, deadliest bomb the world will ever see is underway. Sakharov is still uneasy about the risks of testing nuclear weapons, but he's the best of the best, so he ends up leading the team of physicists. He hopes that this, at least, will be the last atmospheric test ever required. Maybe from this one absurdly big blast, the Soviet Union would learn what they need to know and move on. That, unfortunately, would not be the case. The project's timeline is grueling. Khrushchev insists that from initial conception to detonation, the scientists get exactly 16 weeks. So Sakharov's team is building while still designing. In just 4 months, they whip out a design for an entirely untested yield range. They build the bomb, they construct the fissionable and fusionable materials into the correct shapes, and formulate a plan for an allegedly safe test. They hope for the best. The team is forced to skip crucial parts of the design process. There isn't even time for mathematical analysis. Instead, they're working with approximations. Doubts start to creep in. Will it even work? And how dangerous is this really? Either way, they're about to find out. In October 1961, Khrushchev formally announces to the world that the Soviets are retreating from the test ban agreement. He cites US aggression as the reason. He hints his scientists are developing bombs in the megaton range. Now that the world knows what Sakharov's team is up to, the pressure is on for the physicists to deliver a viable weapon. Otherwise, the whole point, propaganda value, will be lost. The world reacts with fear, outrage, and protest. In response, the Americans abandon the test ban moratorium as well, and start vigorously testing nukes again, themselves. The Kennedy administration denounces the Tsar Bomba as pointless terrorism, nothing but a propaganda weapon. But recently declassified documents indicate that Kennedy's administration considered emulating it, all while denouncing it publicly. The UN appealed to the Soviets to cancel the plan, but Khrushchev pushes forward. At the end of October, Tsar Bomba is ready. It is in and of itself enormous. A weapon with 100 megaton explosive power needs a lot of uranium and fission fuel, so Big Ivan is roughly the size of a school bus, 8 meters long and weighs 25 tons. The bomb is so bulky that it needs its own specially modified plane to deliver the payload. It doesn't really make sense to make bombs this big. It's just not strategic. If actually used in battle, Tsar Bomba would be easy to spot lumbering through the sky and could be quickly shot down. and it's too bulky to deliver via missile. In the decades since Tsar Bomba, the nuclear weapon states have focused on developing smaller warheads. These are far easier to deploy. The largest nuclear weapon in the US arsenal today is about 40 times less powerful than Tsar Bomba. Even in 1961, it was generally understood that bigger isn't necessarily better. That's because explosive power doesn't correspond one-to-one with blast damage. Explosions scale at the cubic root, not linearly. So while a 100 megaton bomb indeed releases 10 times more energy than a 10 megaton bomb, it will only damage about twice as much area. American newspapers at the time characterized Khrushchev's experiments as not only horrifying but idiotic, pointing out that if 5 weapons at 5 megatons each are detonated, they will cause damage to far more area than a 150 megaton super bomb. And these smaller bombs are far easier to deliver. But actual use is not the point of Tsar Bomba. It wasn't built for war. It was built for glory. It's meant to make the world tremble at the thought of Soviet power. It's a city destroyer, to be used only as an absolute last resort. The blast damage radius could be roughly calculated. The remote Arctic island, Novaya Zemlya, is chosen as a test site. It's one of the main nuclear test sites of the Soviet Union because they figure it's far enough away to not bother any humans. But radioactive fallout is more difficult to predict. It can vary considerably with weather conditions and weapon design. Scientists have been surprised before. The 1954 Castle Bravo test produced far more radioactivity than anticipated, requiring evacuation of the islands downwind from the test site. What is known at the time is that thermal radiation scales better than blast damage in relation to explosive power, meaning a bigger blast generally means more radiation. Sakharov can't stop thinking about all the lives it will take. He's taking great care to make the Tsar Bomba as clean as can be. It's designed to minimize the release of radioactive fallout as much as possible. But still, even a relatively clean nuke like Tsar Bomba isn't safe. According to his calculations, the test of one clean 100 megaton weapon will release enough radiation that, over time, will cause 660,000 premature deaths. Deaths he would be partially responsible for. So he makes one last-minute, drastic change in design. Right before the weapon test, he suggests using an inert substance like lead instead of uranium-238. This will cut the blast yield down from 100 to 50 megatons. Khrushchev agrees. He's facing a lot of backlash, so scaling back might be politically smart. As long as the triggering device works and the bomb goes off, the world will still know Tsar Bomba is capable of detonating 100 megatons if the Soviets ever feel they need to in the future, just in case they ever need to take out New York City or Los Angeles all in one go. The pilot carrying Big Ivan soars to 10 kilometers above the archipelago Novaya Zemlya. A smaller plane flies alongside him, ready to film the blast and monitor the fallout. The engineers believe the crew only has a 50% chance of survival. Big Ivan is designed to detonate mid-air. To give the crew even a chance of escape, the bomb is outfitted with a massive parachute meant to slow the bomb's descent. It should be enough time, fingers crossed. At 11:32, Moscow time, from 4,000 meters above the ground, the bombardier drops the bomb. What exactly makes Tsar Bomba so powerful is still, partially, a mystery. Russia continues to guard that secret. What we do know is that its design is most likely different from other thermonuclear weapons. Normally, a thermonuclear weapon or hydrogen bomb consists of 2 stages. It's a nuclear bomb within a nuclear bomb. The first stage uses nuclear fission, or splitting atoms to produce immense heat and pressure. This triggers the second stage, nuclear fusion or combining atoms where far more energy is unleashed. Fusion of hydrogen isotopes under extreme temperatures releases an incredibly powerful explosion, far stronger than a single-stage atomic bomb, like the one dropped on Hiroshima. The Tsar Bomba, however, is a 3-stage hydrogen bomb with an unusual triggering mechanism. What sets it apart is that it most likely uses 2 near-simultaneous primary triggers to ignite the third stage more evenly and symmetrically, maximizing its explosive power. While other 3-stage thermonuclear weapons exist, the innovative use of synchronized primary triggers is unusual, if not unique. It's long been considered extremely difficult to achieve synchronization of primaries. but somehow Sakharov's team managed. When you detonate a thermonuclear weapon, you force something into existence unlike anything else on Earth. The first fraction of a millisecond is just a luminous flash. It's silent. Light has no sound. But don't look at it directly. It could cause blindness from more than 80 kilometers away. Tsar Bomba's flash is seen from 1,000 kilometers, or 630 miles away. It lasts for over a minute, far longer than any other nuclear flash before or since. Then, tremendous heat. The light superheats the air to 100 million degrees Celsius. That's 4 to 5 times hotter than the center of the sun. A high-pressure fireball erupts violently and expands at several million kilometers per hour. What follows is a thunderous blast. It's likely the loudest human-made sound in history. After about 10 seconds, Tsar Bomba's bright orange fireball grows to a radius of nearly 5 kilometers. The fireball engulfs everything in its wake. The ice-covered archipelago is now red and scorched. Anything in the ring of absolute destruction, 35 kilometers, is vaporized. Ground Zero is completely leveled. Nothing. No trees, no buildings, no rocks remain. 35 seconds pass. The fireball balloons above the Earth, and the iconic mushroom cloud emerges, presiding over the hell unleashed below. It's 64 kilometers above the Earth, 7 times higher than Mount Everest, soaring above the stratosphere and piercing the mesosphere. All this creates a shockwave felt all around the world, all the way in New Zealand. It encircles the globe not once, not twice, but 3 times. Tsar Bomba's shockwave catches up with the planes that are 115 kilometers from the point of detonation. They drop nearly a kilometer and are nearly downed, but the pilots manage to recover control and survive. 55 kilometers away from Ground Zero, all buildings in the abandoned village of Severny are completely destroyed. 1,148 kilometers away in Soviet territories, houses collapse and radio communications fail. Windows shatter as far away as Finland. But Big Ivan's detonation doesn't kill anyone directly. If Tsar Bomba were dropped on a city as large as New York or Washington, D.C., it would be instantly demolished. Concrete would explode to vanish without a trace. Metal would evaporate. Tsar Bomba's fireball never made contact with the ground, and so its radioactive fallout was relatively small compared with its yield. It is considered one of the cleanest nukes ever dropped. Still, its radioactivity was caught in the stratosphere and encircled the Earth for years, dispersing all across the globe. In 2018, Russian scientists found significantly high levels of radiation trapped in nearby glaciers. Those glaciers are melting at record speed into the Barents Sea, a sea that yields up to 4.5 million tons of fish per year for human consumption. Glaciers that were previously sinks of atmospheric contaminants are now becoming secondary sources of radioactive fallout, which environmentalists predict will become increasingly relevant in the coming decades. Due to Tsar Bomba and 120 other nuclear detonations at Novaya Zemlya, indigenous populations living nearby have been exposed to significantly high radiation levels. They experience higher levels of chromosomal diseases and birth defects than other populations in Russia, facts that only emerged later because the Soviet Union covered up incidents of radiation sickness. Some locals call it the archipelago of death. Just after detonation, the Tsar Bomba test is condemned internationally and domestically. Sakharov emerges as a vocal critic of nuclear testing and of Soviet leadership. He campaigns vigorously for an end to atmospheric testing. For his efforts, he receives the Nobel Peace Prize in 1975. The Kremlin permits him from leaving the Soviet Union to receive the award. In response to public pressure, the United States and the Soviet Union signed the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in 1963, which prohibits atmospheric testing. Nowadays, people often say that if Tsar Bomba was good for anything at all, it would be for catalyzing this treaty. When brought up, it's often dismissed both in the United States and the former Soviet Union as a reckless political stunt, a weapon too impractical and dangerous to ever be attempted by anyone else. But Khrushchev is hardly the only person in history intent on creating the biggest blast possible. Recently declassified files from the United States indicate that plans had been underway to build much, much bigger bombs. In the 1950s, Edward Teller, fathered the US hydrogen bomb, was obsessed with creating the biggest bang possible. He and his team were working on 2 secret projects called Nomen and Sundial. Nomen would be a 1,000 megaton bomb to set off Sundial, a 10,000 megaton bomb. That's 10 billion tons of TNT, 670,000 times the power of Little Boy dropped on Hiroshima. At least enough to burn all of France, and perhaps much worse still. Nothing close to that scale has been tested, and we don't know if the traditional laws will apply at that level. When Teller first proposed Sundial at a secret meeting in Los Alamos, most of the scientists present expressed horror. Such an enormous blast could poison the entire planet. Unbothered, Teller and his team continued to build Nomen, and even planned to test it. And when the US military learned about the project, there was considerable enthusiasm for realizing Sundial. But thankfully, the test never occurred.